Welcome back, welcome back. What if I tell you that the angel who tried to say Lucifer and face the wrath of God? Let's go ahead and get into this video, shall we?
With divine resolve. This was done. But to this angel, justice didn't feel like light. It felt like loss. He turned his eyes toward the abyss below, where the brightness of heaven gave way to the smoke of judgment. And in the pit, he thought he saw him. Lucifer, once radiant, now burning in ruin. A voice thundered through the sky. "It is finished." The voice of God, final, unshaken. And yet, this angel hesitated. He didn't dare speak. Not yet. But deep within him, a whisper grew louder than heaven's silence. What if he could be saved? That question was the beginning of everything. A thought no angel should have had. Mercy for the condemned. He tried to push it away. He reminded himself of what had been said. Lucifer chose pride. He sealed his fate. But his heart refused to stay silent. It was as though a wound had opened inside his spirit. He remembered the beginning, when Lucifer still sang beside the throne, when light wasn't divided, when heaven had no scars, and now that memory haunted him. He closed his eyes, wings trembling. Around him, angels sang victory hymns, their voices like rivers of flame. But he couldn't join in. Every word of praise felt heavy, almost wrong. And as he looked down again into the abyss, something strange happened. He saw movement. He saw one of the fallen, Lucifer himself, reaching upward, faintly, as if struggling against the pull of eternal darkness. And in that instant, his heart betrayed his duty. He stepped forward, a single step. That was all it took. The light that surrounded him flickered, reacting as if heaven itself questioned his intent. The other angels turned, sensing hesitation. Something rare, something dangerous. One of them, a mighty warrior with eyes like molten gold, called out, "Brother, where are you going?" But he didn't answer. He couldn't, because he didn't even know. All he knew was that he couldn't just stand there and watch a soul, even Lucifer's, be erased forever. And for the first time since creation began, an angel of heaven questioned not God's authority, but the finality of his judgment. He whispered under his breath, "Lord, what if mercy still has meaning?" The skies above him rumbled, not in anger, but in something deeper. Disappointment. He felt it. Heaven felt it. But he couldn't stop himself. And as his wings spread, light gathering around them like fire, he looked one last time toward the throne. His eyes filled not with rebellion, but with tears. Then he descended, downward, toward the realm where no angel was ever meant to go, toward the pit where heaven's light doesn't reach. He wasn't falling. He was kneeling in motion, surrendering everything to a decision his heart couldn't reverse, for love, for mercy, for one lost brother. Never sue the other. The angels above watched him vanish, none daring to follow. They didn't understand what they had just seen. An act of love or defiance? No one knew. But one thing was certain. Heaven had witnessed something new, something dangerous, something deeply human. Heaven's light faded behind him like a closing sunrise. Every flap of his wings echoed through the emptiness, each beat slower than the last, heavier, as if the weight of what he'd just done clung to him like chains. He had never known darkness before. Not this kind. In heaven, even shadows were gentle. They danced, they shimmered. But here, the darkness swallowed light. It didn't bend or retreat. It consumed. And the deeper he went, the louder the silence became. No songs, no wind, no presence of the divine. Only echoes. Broken, distant, like screams that never found their way out. He felt his light dimming. The radiance that marked him as heaven's own began to flicker. It frightened him, because for the first time, he didn't know if God was still watching, or if he had turned his face away. He whispered, voice trembling, "Father, if I'm wrong, let my light die. But if there's mercy still, let it burn." The void didn't answer. He continued to fall, not in rebellion, but in plea. His wings caught bursts of fading gold as he passed through layers of forgotten realms, where time didn't flow and light existed only as memory. Then suddenly, a whisper. It wasn't divine. It was fractured like wind breaking through shattered glass. Why are you here? He froze midair, scanning the darkness. The air around him shifted, forming shapes, shadows that almost looked like angels, but twisted, torn. Wings burned black, feathers ash. The fallen. They moved like ghosts, circling him slowly. Eyes like dying embers, their faces marked with pain older than the world. Heaven sent another? One hissed. No, another sneered. He doesn't belong to them anymore. He raised his hands not to fight, but in peace. I am not your enemy, he said softly. I came for one of you. The shadows laughed, a low, hollow sound. And then one of them, larger, darker, stepped forward. His face was almost unrecognizable beneath ruin, yet there was something familiar in his gaze. Lucifer. Once he was light itself. Now he looked like the memory of it. Fragments of beauty still hidden beneath endless decay. His wings, though charred, still held faint glimmers of the glory they once had. Lucifer tilted his head, studying the glowing figure before him. You came down here? The angel's voice quivered. Yes. To do what? Lucifer asked, his tone bitter and calm. Pity me? The angel shook his head slowly. To understand. Lucifer smirked, a haunting, empty gesture. There is nothing left to understand. I made my choice. I chose freedom, and now I wear its chains. But the angel's eyes softened. You call them chains, yet you defend them. Lucifer's expression darkened. You wouldn't understand. Then make me, the angel said, his voice rising not in defiance but in ache. Help me see what made you turn away from the one who made us both. Lucifer stared at him for a long time, longer than eternity could measure. Then he whispered, Because I loved myself more than his silence. The words struck deep. The angel felt them. The pride, the pain, the loneliness. For the first time he saw not rebellion, but regret. Lucifer turned away. You shouldn't be here. If he sent you, you've failed already. And if you came on your own, he paused, his voice cracking like thunder in a storm. Then you're no longer one of them. The angel's heart ached. He wanted to speak, to tell him that wasn't true, that heaven's mercy was greater than wrath. But even as he opened his mouth, he felt it, a sudden heat, a pulse of divine energy from above. Heaven had noticed. The light that followed wasn't gentle, it was judgment. It cracked through the void, splitting the darkness with divine fury. The fallen screamed and scattered like shadows before dawn. Lucifer shielded his face, and even he looked afraid. The angel fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the power pouring through the air. And then, a voice. Not thunder, not rage, but something worse. Disappointment. You would reach for one I have condemned? The angel lowered his head. Tears burned trails down his face as he whispered, I only sought to show mercy. Mercy? The voice echoed. Mercy without obedience is not love. It is rebellion clothed in kindness. The skies above trembled. Lucifer turned away. Even he couldn't bear to watch what would follow. The angel lifted his eyes filled with sorrow. Then let my mercy be my punishment. And as he said it, the light engulfed him. Not to destroy, but to strip away. His wings dimmed, his armor cracked. He wasn't cast out like Lucifer, but he wasn't allowed to rise again either. He was left in the space between, neither fallen nor free. A watcher between heaven and hell, forgotten, silent, carrying the weight of both mercy and mistake. And for ages his name was never spoken again. Until one day long after, when a prophet in exile saw a vision of a glowing figure standing between the realms of the living and the dead, and asked, Who are you? And the figure replied softly, I am Jeremiel, the mercy of God. Time, if time even existed where he was, moved differently now. There was no dawn, no dusk, only a horizon that never changed, suspended between light and shadow. That's where he woke. His once golden armor now dulled to a quiet bronze. His wings, not white, not black, but a haunting blend of both. like light struggling to remember itself. And around him, silence. He wasn't in heaven. He wasn't in hell. He was somewhere in between. When he tried to rise, his knees trembled. He reached for his sword, but it was gone. All that remained was the faint mark where it had once rested. He whispered softly, "Is this death?" But no answer came. The air felt heavy, like it carried every unspoken sorrow in creation. He looked up, expecting to see the light of the throne, but above him was only a dim, golden haze, too bright to be dark, too dark to be holy. He was alone, yet not forgotten, because in the stillness, a presence stirred. From the mist, shapes began to form, faint, glowing silhouettes of souls. They drifted toward him like lost stars, whispering prayers, regrets, and cries too old for words. Some looked afraid. Some looked peaceful. All looked lost. The angel felt their sorrow, and it pierced him deeper than any blade. He understood then why he had been left here. This was not punishment, it was purpose. For the first time since his fall, he heard the faint echo of that divine voice again. Not angry this time, not distant. "You wished for mercy, then bear witness to it." He turned, and before him unfolded the boundary between worlds, the thin golden river that divided the living from the dead. Souls stood upon its banks, trembling, uncertain of where they would go. He could see heaven's light on one side, and the faint, aching shadows of damnation on the other. And in that moment, he knew. His calling wasn't to erase his mistake. It was to redeem it. He would guide them. He would help the lost find peace, even if he never could. He knelt at the river's edge, the same way he once knelt before God, and whispered, "Then let this be my service." A warm wind moved through the air, almost like a sigh from heaven itself. And from that day, whenever a soul left the world of the living, they would see a figure waiting at the border of eternity, not radiant like the others, not terrifying like the fallen, but gentle. Eyes filled with sorrow, wings touched by twilight. He never introduced himself. He never spoke of what he'd done. But those who saw him said there was mercy in his silence, in a strange, quiet comfort in his presence. Some would later say his name with reverence. Others would whisper it in fear. Jeremiel, the angel who watches over the souls of the dead, the one who weeps for what heaven lost and what hell became. Even now, they say, when a righteous soul passes from the earth, a soft voice greets them at the veil. "Do not fear. You are seen. You are loved. You are forgiven." That voice is his. Once an angel who questioned judgment, now the angel who carries mercy through the gates of eternity. Not a rebel, not a hero, but something far rarer. A reminder that even in heaven, love comes with a cost. The river was quiet that day. The souls moved slowly, drifting through golden mist like leaves carried by gentle wind. Jeremiel knelt beside the water, tracing faint ripples with his fingertips. Each ripple carried a prayer, a memory, a heartbeat once living. He had grown used to the quiet. The ache of solitude had become almost holy, until that moment when the air began to shift. A sound pierced through the stillness. Wings, not like those of the departed. These were powerful, radiant, alive with heaven's fire. He didn't turn right away. He already knew who it was. The light grew stronger, reflecting against the golden surface of the river, until a figure stepped through it. Tall, armored, his presence shaking the air itself. Michael, the archangel of war, the defender of heaven. Jeremiel rose slowly, his once golden armor now dim beside Michael's brilliance. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was thick with years, centuries of silence, of questions that never found words. Finally, Michael broke it. "Lucifer still whispers your name." Jeremiel's heart trembled. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in eons. "He remembers you as the only one who reached for him," Michael continued. "He calls you the merciful fool." A faint, sorrowful smile crossed Jeremiel's face. "Perhaps I was, but even fools have purpose." Michael studied him, torn between admiration and grief. "You risked everything for one who spat on the light. For that, heaven could have erased you. Jeremiel looked at him with quiet certainty. I didn't risk everything, Michael. I gave everything, and somehow I was still given more. He gestured toward the souls drifting by. Look at them. Lost, broken, imperfect, yet loved enough to be guided home. If this is exile, then I welcome it. Michael turned his gaze toward the souls, tiny sparks of mortal lives shimmering like embers. For the first time, his armor seemed to dim slightly, as though humbled by the sight. He whispered, You always saw what we didn't. Jeremiel's eyes softened. No, I only saw what I was meant to feel. A quiet fell between them again, but this time it wasn't tense. It was holy. Michael finally looked at him and said, Heaven hasn't forgotten you, Jeremiel. You were punished for compassion, but heaven still calls you one of us. Jeremiel bowed his head. I am what he made me to be, even in the silence. Michael hesitated, then stepped forward and placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. The touch glowed softly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. You may never return, but the throne still shines on you. Remember that. Jeremiel closed his eyes, a tear catching in the glow. Then tell him, I never stopped loving him. Michael nodded, and with a burst of light, spread his wings once more. Before he departed, he turned one last time. You're still an angel, Jeremiel. Don't ever let your sorrow convince you otherwise. And then he was gone, back into heaven's fire. Jeremiel stood alone again, the air still warm from Michael's presence. He looked at the river, at the souls still moving, and whispered, Even warriors need mercy. And from the distance above, for just a moment, he thought he heard the faint sound of God's voice. Not thunder, not law, but approval. Grown silent, the rebellion was over. Lucifer and his followers were gone, cast into the abyss where their light was swallowed by eternal night. The echoes of their screams had faded into memory, but one angel still could not find peace. Jeremiel stood alone at the edge of heaven's radiant plains, where the golden light met the endless void.